It is that life is exactly what you dare to make it. And fortune favors the bold.
Mm.
And so the trick to life is to boldly step up and dare to make your life magnificent. Learn something new, talk about it, walk it, and teach it to other people. You'll not only be helping yourself, but that natural trade-off in life. You give, you'll receive. You create that loop within inside yourself. You'll be wealthy, healthier, happier, and more financially abundant.
Joseph McClendon III is one of the most sought-after ultimate performance specialists in the world. His unique techniques rapidly trigger the personal change that effectively moves you to take more consistent action and go further faster with your personal and business achievements. He has delivered hundreds of workshops, coaching sessions, keynote addresses, seminars, and training programs, and one-on-one therapeutic intervention, and has presented to well over 3 million people around the globe. His remarkable ability to go straight to the core of the challenge and effect rapid change makes him a unique commodity in business, health and wellness, and personal improvement. Joseph has partnered with the world-renowned life coach Anthony Robbins for over 30 years. You may have seen them train together at Tony Robbins' conference, Unleash the Power Within. His mission is to make you bold in your ability to achieve the life you desire and to help you go further, faster now. Okay, there is not enough words to express what an honor it is to have you on the show, Passion, Love, Pursuit podcast. I am so ecstatic, as you could probably hear in my voice before we press record. Joseph McClendon III, thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing this space with me today. It is such an honor.
It is my absolute pleasure. Nice to be here.
Well, where do we get started? Because I know there's lots of goodness you're going to share in this episode. So how about this? So I know many people that are successful don't just one day wake up successful. There's a journey, and it's usually a hard road, likely endured in the process. So I would especially love to hear, your path in getting where you are today. I know there's probably a lot to it, but just to summarize so people can learn more about you. Because I know possibly the people listening today have either shared this space with you, have heard you speak, but they probably don't know your background of where you came from. So if you could share that.
Yeah, well, first off, I agree with you. When you talk about successful people, at the risk of sounding arrogant, there's not a one that I know that hasn't come from some sort of adversity or at some point, and we all do, and it's all relevant. For some people, adversity is they lost their job. For some people, adversity is they lost both of their legs and their arms. So it can be anything. So it's all relevant. However, I will say this, when I think of success, I think of you earn it. It's not something that was given to you. Very few people have a lot of respect for somebody that was just given their success or their wealth or all those things, but we all have to earn it. And so in my case, I came from a great family. I had a great father, a great mother, great family and everything. We didn't have money. My father joined the Air Force at 17 years old. He actually told me he had lied to get into the service, to keep him off the streets many, many years ago. And so he instilled in us, we had to keep our grades up. We had to keep a good education and to have integrity and all those things. And I had super great confidence in myself and my life all growing up until I was 17 and a half years old. And at 17 and a half years old, 3 grown men tried to take my life because of the color of my skin. And they left me for dead. And I always say that the worst part was not getting beat up. The worst part were the things that they said to me while they were doing it. These were grown men. And those things destroyed my self-worth, destroyed my self-esteem and all that I thought about myself. And because of the way I was raised, I didn't blame them. And because of social conditioning, I actually felt like, well, not that I deserved it, but that's what happens to a person like me. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, I spiraled down and I became homeless. I wound up living in a cardboard box behind a drive-in theater in Lancaster, California. And what changed my life was somebody that I didn't know, a kind person, gave me a book, and the book was Think and Grow Rich. And he gave me the book, and he insisted that I read it. And quite honestly, I was desperate. I was suicidal. I was at the bottom of my life. And I read the book, and I always tell people I did the exercises in the book. I didn't know what I was doing, but I did the exercises in the book. And as a result, my life started to change. I changed how I felt about myself, how I felt about other people, and how I felt about the world around me. And my life started to change. And when I went back to the gentleman to ask him how I repay him, because that's the way I was raised, I said, what do I do for you? You've been so kind to me. What do I do for you? And what he told me was, he said, how you repay me is you do the same thing that I've done for you, for as many people as you possibly can for the rest of your life. I was 19, and I didn't really take it that serious. But as time went on, that became my calling. That became my passion, and still is. And that's why I do what I do now.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that story. And I'm sure, this is so long ago that you experienced this, and I know it was very traumatic. And I'm just curious, and I wasn't thinking of asking you this, but when everything happened with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, did that reiterate the experience you went through?
Interesting you say that, because it did not reiterate that as much as it did make me realize another calling of mine, because it's in addition. I mean, everything that I do, at the risk of sounding too noble, everything I do is in service of other people. And I really mean that. I mean, it does sound like, oh, I'm waving this flag of I'm better and I'm great.
It's true.
Yeah, but it's not that. It truly is something that I believe that the key to life truly is in the giving and helping others. I think that's what we're here for. People, parents, if you're a parent, your life is about giving and helping your own children. And the gift that you get back is what you give to yourself from that, the feeling that you get. So I get that from that. And so on that point right there, I have my entire life been helping to bring to the realization that it doesn't matter the color of your skin, it doesn't matter your ethnicity, it doesn't matter your gender, it doesn't matter all that stuff, it matters your soul. And so when that happened to me, because what put me in depression, if you will, was, like I said, the things that those people said to me. And so when I started to see all the things that were going on, it's nothing new to me. As a Black person, it's nothing new. It's been going on. It's part of our lives. We just have accepted that. But here's the challenge, is that we've accepted it and believe that about ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so when I started to see all of these things, finally, because it wasn't just Black people in the street, and it wasn't just a Black thing, it was a human being thing. And so that inspired me to do something that I had been doing for a long time. And I created something. I actually made, on my dime, I made a Instagram post, and I didn't do any paid advertisement, but I did a bunch of social network out there. And I basically said, listen, if you have Black or brown skin, you have a psychological wound that you might not be aware of. And that wound, at the very least, slows you down. At the very worst, has stopped you. Mm-hmm. Procrastination, hesitation, fear of failure, fear of success, and all those things. Because I've seen the smaller versions of Black Lives Matter my entire life. Civil rights, Rodney King, it just goes on and on. And what happens is some change gets made, but it doesn't cross that line. And part of the reason it doesn't cross that line is because as a culture, we don't believe it in ourselves. We fall back oftentimes, not completely, but it's, I always say to people, you got to participate in your own rescue. And so, and proof of that is I put this out on, and if you're listening, go and see this. It'll break your heart. And it's not about being Black, but it is an indication of how human beings are affected by two things. One is called epigenetics, and the other is called social conditioning. And I'll talk about the social conditioning first. And that is, there's something called the Black baby doll experiment. And remember, kind of remove the Black side of it. If you're not Black, if you are, just remove it and just understand that this is how human beings are programmed. And So what they did was they took a black baby doll and a white baby doll, they put them on the table, and they took these children from the ages of 3 to 5 years old, and black children first, and they said, point to the baby that's wrong, bad, and ugly. And all the children, every single one of them pointed to the black baby doll. They said, point to the baby that's good, right, and pretty. And all of them pointed to the white baby doll, which means, and by the way, they did it with white children as well. Yeah. And they all did the same thing, which means by 3 years old, 5 years old, these black children believe that they are wrong, bad, and ugly. And their image of themselves is wrong, bad, and ugly. Yeah, it'll break your heart. And then the white children, by 3 years old, they believe that a black person is wrong, bad, and ugly. And so this happens as a result of social conditioning. And then it's not somebody saying black people are wrong, bad, and ugly. It's just that what we see and that we don't see. But here's the other thing is, and this, by the way, again, this is human beings in general, but there's something called epigenetics. And epigenetics is the study of how the fears of the ancestors get handed down to the offspring genetically. And proof of this, and they do a lot of things, but they did one with mice. They took mice, they introduced the smell of vanilla or cinnamon to them, and then they shocked the mice. It's cruel, but they shocked the mice. So they'd give them the smell, shock them out, and then pretty soon all they had to do, they didn't have to shock them. They just introduced the smell, and the mice would go into panic, fight or flight. Well, here's the deal. 10, 15, 20 generations down the line of these mice, their offspring, all they had to do was introduce the smell of cinnamon to them, and they would go into fear. Wow. And so it gets handed down. And so if you're African American, all of our ancestors were beaten, enslaved, lynched, tortured, raped, and psychologically hijacked to believe the absolute worst about ourselves. So that's handed down. So long story, but I'll end it here. I created something called the Magnificent Life Experience, and a challenge. And what I did was I just, for free, I invited everybody, and it was beautiful. I would say obviously 80% of it was African American or Black, and it was worldwide. It was all over the place, but it was everybody. And what I did was I taught some of the things. There's a book behind me, you can't see it. My very first book I wrote was called Unlimited Power of Black Choice, bringing the neurosciences into the Black community as well. And so what that did to me, long answer to your question, sorry, but what that did to me was made me, it inspired me more to bring more to the general public's eye, at the very least to the Black community's eye as well.
I appreciate that you put the time and the effort to bring that forward. I imagine, I mean, you're coming from your own personal experience, but you also come from the psychology of what is conditioned. So you are able to break it down to more understanding for anybody to listen to it. So I appreciate you sharing that. And like I said, I wasn't going to ask that, but I think that's important because coming from the background you came from, so it's present in your life. But I love, people that have heard you speak before. It was likely on the stage of UPW with Tony Robbins. You've been doing UPW and sharing the stage with Tony Robbins for about 30 years. Am I correct?
That's true. Uh-huh.
Wow. Okay. So I know you have one specific gift, and this is what I love so much, is you make it so fun and engaging. I know that day 2 is when you come on with UPW. For those that haven't experienced it, of course, must. And I know the next one's coming in June, which is really exciting. But what you make it's so fun and engaging. So when you come on the stage, of course, everybody's expecting Tony Robbins, but you're like, hey, I'm here to bring it. And you do. You over deliver and you make it so fun. So I believe that is just the gift you share with us, which I love. So also you share with us not just, these theories. You show proven success from formulas and science and everything. So can you share with us your background that makes your teaching so powerful and life-changing?
Well, thank you for the kind words. And it's all by design. In other words, it's not, when I say by design, I really mean it. I say this from the stage, you probably heard me say it, that everything that I do, everything that I say, everywhere I stand and every move that I make is calculated to bring about a result. And part of that has come from, I was just thinking about this today. My son has a Rubik's Cube.
Mm.
And those things are impossible, for people who don't know. But then he showed me something, because he's working on it. He showed me something where there are people that'll take, it's all jumbled up like that, and they'll solve it in seconds. I want to say like 30 seconds. They'll boom, 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 and they'll put it down. And there's contests for all that. And the only difference between those people and somebody like me is they have a system. They have a process. Mm-hmm. And so when they approach something, they when they approach that particular thing, they go, this goes here, this goes there, and they condition themselves to do that. And so I believe it's the same thing, whether I'm on the stage, whether I am helping somebody with a fear or a phobia or their business or coaching or anything like that. I got a system. And so from the time I walk out on stage, in that situation there's something that I say to everybody. There's something that I move. There's something that I do every single time that causes people to respond a certain way and stay engaged. And so I always like to point that out, because people will say things like, gosh, you're talented in doing that. No, I had stage fright before I started doing this stuff. I was terrible. And so, I use that as an example of anybody can do it. If you know the system, anybody can figure out a Rubik's Cube. Anybody can figure out doing this if you have a good coach, mentor, or teacher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I love. And so if we could bring us back, because you mentioned the book that you read, Think and Grow Rich, which I haven't read yet. I know that's actually probably after this interview, I'm going to go purchase it, because I know so many people speak highly about this book. I would love to know, and I think there's one key thing you mentioned. I know you could agree with this, that you did the exercises.
Yeah.
And that's where the game-changing things come into play. And I completely agree. And that's going into UPW or any type of course you do, you must do the exercises. And I remember I worked with a life coach a couple times. And the third time I worked with a life coach, I made the intention, I'm going to do the exercises and I'm going to do it without distraction. I think that's also the key, is when you're intentional and you're doing it without any interruptions, then you can actually put your heart fully into the exercise. So I'm curious, when you say you did the exercises, can you share kind of some specific things that were the game-changing things that you got out of the book?
Yeah. First off, that's a really good point that you're making there, because I always say that willpower is a myth. People say, it takes willpower to do it. No, everybody's got willpower when you're excited or when you're desperate. And we all say, I will do it. I will do it. I will start my diet tomorrow. I will stop smoking. I will do that. And you got a lot of willpower in the moment, but willpower goes away as soon as the pain goes away. As soon as the immediate pain, whether it's emotional or physical, the willpower goes away. That is why so many people, tomorrow they don't start their diet. Tomorrow they don't do what they said they were going to do. Tomorrow they don't read that book. It's do power. It's what you do that produces the results. And so, again, I learned that at a very young age from my dad and my mom. And so kind of like what you were saying when you did that with your coach, I sat down and it's automatic with me now, but I said to myself, if I want the results, then I got to do what it says. And there were two big pieces of that book. And again, you should read the book, and I know now you'll do the exercises. And for people who don't know, the book was written by Napoleon Hill in 1937. And when you read the book, you'll swear that this guy is gifted in all these things and that it was written yesterday.
Wow.
Because the principles in there, the premise of the book was he was commissioned by Andrew Carnegie, who was one of the wealthiest men and successful men of the day. And he said, I want you to go on and I want you to interview other successful people and find out what they have in common. And this is certainly a boiling down of the whole thing. But the two main things that I got from the book was, number one, is successful people think differently than non-successful people. And then secondly, is that they have the ability to, because of the way they think, to tap into the unseen forces. And here's where it gets cosmic. There are unseen forces all around us. There's electricity all around us. What holds everything together is electricity, electrons. Every molecule, whether the computer that you're talking on, the cell phone, anything that you have, our hair, everything on the planet is held together the atoms of those things and the subatomic particles are held together by electrons. It's electricity. It's unseen. You can't see it. And there's more of that than there is solid stuff around us. And so what Napoleon Hill talked about was, through a certain process, you can tap into it as well. You can literally I don't like to use the word manifest things. I use the word magnetize, bring things into your life. And I didn't know what I was doing. He just had, you're doing a few things, do some affirmations and declare what you want and visualize and things like that. And I just did it. And lo and behold, and some of it had to do with, because I was so desperate and I was emotional and I was committed to doing it, things started to show up in my life. And then I started to realize, oh, wait a minute, it really already always has been that way. And so, and over time, again, I call it magnetizing. I call it the magnetic megapreneur. I've married the neurosciences with the laws of attraction. I call it magnetism. And so that way it's not, because I taught at the University of Southern California for several years, and I taught to engineers. So which meant I had to prove everything that I talked about. I mean, they're super, super smart people. And so this is not unicorns and crystals and rainbows and things like that. It's hardcore science. And so I just developed it into something that is more teachable, effective, and so on and so forth. So it's not just a secret in the laws of attraction and things like that. So those are the two things. Number one, the mechanics of how those people think, successful people think, and the mechanics of how they bring things into their lives. Because all of us will look at those people and we'll go, well, they're lucky that, this happened to them and this happened to them. Yeah, they worked hard, but they were in the right place at the right time. Forgetting that, maybe they put themselves in that place through their mind and through what they were thinking and their activities, as well as they created those situations.
Yeah. And before we go deeper into that, actually, if we could touch on your degree as a neuropsychologist, can you explain the difference between that and a traditional psychologist?
Yeah, traditional psychology is, and by the way, this is not throwing any of that under the bus, because it's all good stuff. It's just different applications. Traditional psychology, this is just my explanation of it. We have two ways of entering your world. And that is you seeing us and hearing our words. So generally, traditional therapy, you would come in, you got a fear of dogs, fear of cats, fear of whatever. You come in or a bad experience, you come in, you lay down on my couch and I'd talk to you. Now, of course, with Zoom, and I would talk to you. And maybe I might show you a picture or show you something like that from time to time, but 80 to 90% of it's going to be my voice to yours, to your ears. Now, human beings have 5 senses. And so if you look at your senses as being part of your nervous system, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, gustatory, and olfactory, all 5 of our senses. Now, we communicate with those senses. Some people, they see things first. If I tell them something, they'll make a picture in their mind. That's a visual person. Some people, if I say something to them, they will have a voice in their head. Now, we all use all 5. However, we'll say things and they will make a picture, words, or whatever. So the combinations of 5 different things are in the thousands. And so you may be visual first, auditory second, olfactory third. You may be whatever. So a neuropsychologist, what I do is I will use all 5 of them, at the very least, all 3 of them. First off, I'll observe the kind of person that you are, and just through talking to you, I can see whether what representational system you use first, and then I will parrot that back to you, and my conversation with you, as well as what I show you, as well as what I cause you to feel, will be the combination that's right for you, which causes you to do this very special thing that is different than my just making a suggestion to you. Because if I make a suggestion to you, you may believe something, but if I make a suggestion to you, you may believe me. If I tell you something, you may believe me. You'll say, okay, well, Joseph is, he's an expert at this and so on and so forth. But if you underneath, deep down inside, you've got self-esteem issues, or you don't believe something about yourself, that's going to go away. But if you tell you something, you're going to believe it because you've been believing it your whole life. So if I can communicate to you in a way to get you to tell you something, and my methodology is unorthodox, then you're going to believe it and you're going to do something about it. And so if you come into my office and you got a fear of dogs, take a guess what's going to be in my office.
Right.
A dog. And at the end of that session, you're going to hold the dog. You're going to be fine with that dog. And then I'm going to give you something to do outside of there that enhances it and makes it geometrically better.
It sounds like a scary thing for somebody that, especially somebody that has fears, to go to you and know that what you're going to do is going to trigger that. But it does, like you said, it's dealing with it right then and there, and then giving them tools to take from there so that they can change the behavior or the attachment they have to that feeling. So yeah, it sounds
I make it unscary for them before they get there. In other words, oftentimes they don't know that's going to happen. But it's not a scary experience. In other words, part of the observation and the conversation with the person before, it starts long before you come into my office. It starts with the conversation and my observation. And as we talked before we started the recording, I have a very specific set of skills.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so leading into psychology, which I know we'll talk deeper into this, of the formula for success, and a lot of it, well, a big chunk of it is psychology. So you state that psychology is not about mindset, and that when we endure challenges and we choose to rise above them. Can you explain this a little deeper?
Yeah. We have, mindset implies that we have a set of thoughts about a specific thing, and we do. And so that mindset is what's out front. In other words, when we go to, let's just say, make more money or to overcome something, okay, we have a set of thoughts that this is that, and that's the way that it is. We're convinced of that for whatever reason. We were socially conditioned or we learned it, either way, or both. But the question is, what makes that mindset stick? What makes you continue to believe that? And it's something called your psychology. And your psychology is it's the foundation of who we are as human beings. It's what makes us do what we do. The reason we have a mindset, the reason we believe this about money or weight loss or other people and so on and so forth, is because our psychology. And psychology is three things. It is our belief, our constant thoughts about ourselves, other people, and the world around us. That's it. I like to super simplify things. And so our beliefs about ourselves, our identity, if we believe that we're a loser, if we believe that we're not good enough, if we believe that there's something wrong with us, then that belief is going to permeate into, biologically, it's going to permeate into our every cell in our body, the blood that courses through our veins, the solutions and hormones that course through our blood. And it's going to make us feel a certain way. And as a result, we're not going to perform as well as we could. If we believe that we're amazing and that we're unstoppable and we're over the top, then guess what? The opposite. We're going to release what's called dopamine. We're going to feel good and we're going to perform better. And so that's number one, psychology, the psychology of ourselves. Second is the belief about other people. If we believe that other people are terrible and they're mean and they're this and they're that, then accordingly, we're going to perform that way. And the world around us, if we believe that the world is a cruel place and you got to be lucky and all those things. So part of what I help people do is let's figure out what your psychology is about yourself. And then let's find out the psychology that that is going to benefit you to help you get your goals and dreams and desires. And then let's replace them. And that's the difference. That's something, as I said to you before, called neuroencoding. Neuroencoding is teaching people to and helping them and assisting them in programming themselves, programming their psychology so that they automatically default to their best behavior. So that they don't have to think about it. They don't have to, whip themselves into a frenzy. It just happens automatically, as automatic as you tying your shoe or driving a car or riding a bicycle.
So how does that begin? How do we start to reprogram that psychology?
Observation first. It's always the same thing. And it is, as I said, it's something that, I've just distilled everything that I know down into this process called neuroencoding. As I said, just like the Rubik's Cube, to teach people that. It starts with observation. In other words, I can look at somebody and I can assume this person might want this, but I won't know until I talk to that person. And through the conversation with that person, they're going to tell me what they want. But they're also going to tell me what stops them from getting it. And sometimes it's unconscious. Mm-hmm. If, this is a podcast, so people can't see me, but I'll explain to you. If I say, what do you want? And they go, I want to lose weight. And their head is shaking no. Their body is telling me that they may want that, but they don't believe that they can, because their head is shaking. No, the physical body tells more than anything. The position of your eyes and your head, all of those things are cues. And so it starts with that. And so for somebody else, it's the same thing, whether it's me or you coaching somebody, which I encourage everybody to do, get a coach, mentor, teacher, and things like that, because it condenses time. But even for yourself, it's to sit down and go, what do I want in these 5 areas? My physical body, my finances, my emotions, my relationships, and spirituality. What do I want in those areas? And then notice how you feel about it. And that feeling is what you go after. Because it doesn't matter what you think and what you believe in that moment. Your feelings are going to tell everything. Your feelings are what make your head shake no or yes. Your feelings are what makes your heart beat, that kind of thing. And now what we know what we want, we know what stops them is that feeling. And then I get to go in and surgically switch that pattern, interrupt that pattern, and help them figure out, the better thing for them, and install that in their nervous system, so that becomes their default.
And I know this is talked about a lot, is the interrupting the patterns, and you don't have to go into the specifics, because I know in UPW there is an exercise where we do interrupt this pattern, and that's really what takes the original conditioned thought and switches it, and then you're able to plug it in with something empowering and more something you're able to believe. So give an example of, if you could give a little short example of interrupting a pattern, and why does this work so well?
Because it is something that we already do, and because it's just the way we function as human beings. Here's the example I like to use. We've all had this situation. Maybe you're sitting in your living room and you see something on television. You go, I want to write that down. But you look around, you don't have an ink pen. So in that moment, you have urgency to get the ink pen. And you're thinking ink pen. And remember, thinking is just saying and seeing. So you got a picture of ink pen in your head, and you got the words called ink pen. It makes you feel that urgency. I got to go get an ink pen. So in that moment, you are in a pattern of seeing, saying, and feeling. That's your pattern in that moment. It's called ink pen, for lack of a better term. And then you go, oh, there's an ink pen in the kitchen. You stand up, you go in the kitchen, and there you are in the kitchen going, the hell did I come in here for? Why did I come in here? Now, what just happened was that pattern that you were in, called the ink pen, got interrupted by the radical shift of your physiology. You stood up and you moved. And we've all had situations like that where we're talking on the phone, something distracts us and we can't remember what we're talking about. And it's the same thing. Anytime you're in a pattern of thought, feeling, and focus, if that pattern gets interrupted, 3 things happen. Number 1, you're no longer in that pattern. Number 2, you've created something called a scotoma. A scotoma is a blank spot in the mind. And in number 3, that blank spot is a vacuum, meaning it's going, give me something. Nature abhors a vacuum. And so, not to put too fine a point on it, if somebody has a fear of dogs and there's a dog in there, they walk in there, they're fearful in that moment. They're focused on that freaking dog. They're hearing their brain going, get out of here, run, and they're feeling terrified. Well, if I blast a horn or if I throw water on them in the moment, the pattern is going to be interrupted. And for a moment, I've got a scotoma and I can fill it up with what I want.
Oh, wow. Interesting. And actually, you do, as you just touched on, radical change in your physiology. So you call it the awesome sauce when you move your body. What's the awesome sauce?
Awesome sauce is the name of one of my books, as a matter of fact.
Oh, it is. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and I wrote it because awesome sauce is my term that I've given to the solutions, chemicals, and substances that your brain and your glands and your body releases when you're in the zone. In other words, when we're firing on all 12 cylinders and everything is going right and we're happy and all those things, our brain is releasing something called, at the very least, this is the dominant one, called dopamine. And dopamine is the chemical that causes us to feel good. Well, it has a couple causes, or a couple functions. Number one, yes, it makes us feel good, but it also puts the brain on alert. And it says, what just happened that made us feel this good? And the brain goes, you know, I did this, you know, this happened or whatever. And then so we build a neuroassociation to whatever that was. So for example, if you put on your your best dress and your makeup and everything, and your boyfriend / husband or whatever goes, you look beautiful tonight, okay? Then guess what? Dopamine release, and your brain goes, do that again.
Right. And
so that's the learning process. That's one of the learning processes. And so awesome sauce are the cocktail of chemicals, dopamine, endorphins, and things like that are released when we're at our best. I have the privilege of mentoring several over the years, major sports figures, basketball, football, you name it. And all of them have something called being in the zone. And when they're in the zone, they say they can do no wrong. And if you were to take their blood when they're in the zone versus when they're not in the zone, you would find it's a different makeup. And so what we can do is that we can condition ourselves to go into that zone, meaning release those chemicals. And the easiest way is just a smile. The easiest way is in the moment is just a smile, because it's all mechanical. Remember, I had to teach to engineers, and I couldn't just say that, just smile. You had to prove it to them. And so we got 80 muscles on our face. It's the largest concentration of muscles in our entire body, but it's there for a reason. And every expression that you make makes your brain release chemicals. So when you smile, it releases dopamine. You can't help it. And so, you know, I always say, you want to speed up the learning process? Smile. Have some joy in what you're doing, and you'll speed up the learning process, because the dopamine going in your system goes, what just happened? Oh, let's do it again. Let's do it again.
Amazing. And actually, any memory we have, or generally the memories we have, are tied to some emotion. So yeah, that's what's so interesting. So obviously, like when you have this emotional experience, you're going to memorize it and you're going to experience it again. And it's going to be something that you always keep with you. And actually, I love that you share this. You coined the term attitude. And I completely agree with you in the whole idea that when you shake your ass, there is impossible to not be happy and to not have a smile on your face. And so share the attitude.
Well, it is, I couldn't have said it better yourself, that when you shake your ass, you cannot I'll put it this way, you cannot not release dopamine. You can't do it without, you know, and you've seen me do it to 12,000, 16, and last UP there was 40,000 people. And they do it because all the way back at the beginning of our conversation, I've conditioned them to do certain things. And literally, I've had nuns standing on their chair shaking their ass. None. Full habit nuns, okay? And so when we move our body, period, we cause our body to release chemicals. When we move our body, that area of our body, it causes our body to release more dopamine. And so, you know, I coined that phrase because, you know, that old saying that attitude, or your attitude determines your altitude. Okay, well, what makes your attitude? Shaking your ass. You know, if you just do that. If you deliberately do it, then you do it enough times, and you do it with joy, then your nervous system says do more of it. And we'll find ourselves, you know, your attitude, because of your attitude, becomes better, and it becomes part of your default.
That's so great. I love it. It's the best. I think that, and I feel Latin music, it's really hard to not put a smile on your face or
Why?
feel like
Because you're
there's,
moving that ass. Because
right?
yeah.
It's so true. So great. You also talk about this rapid condition change formula, and which consists of the 4 steps. Can you explain this?
Yeah, I've actually switched it a little bit since you read what you read, but here's what they are. And they incorporate the things that I said before with pattern interrupts. Number one, now I'll tell you first and then I'll explain them. Feel bad. Number two, interrupt the pattern. Number three, feel good. And number four, celebrate. And if you just do these things, then what happens is you condition yourself to default. And what that means is don't run away from it, run towards your fear. Like I said, you got a fear of dogs, there's going to be a dog there. I want you to on purpose feel bad. On purpose, because like I said, traditional therapy is, I don't want you to feel bad. Let's just talk about it. We'll talk around it. Not me. Let's jump in with both feet. Why? Because then the emotion is right there. And then the second step is, just like I said before, you get to interrupt the pattern. So the emotion is there, you're afraid or whatever, and then you interrupt the pattern. You've created that scotoma, and then feel good. At the very least, smile. If you just feel bad, interrupt your pattern, shake yourself out, and put a smile on your face, mechanically, dopamine gets dumped in that space, and your brain goes, what just happened? Oh, I interrupted my pattern because I was feeling bad. And then when you praise yourself, praise is the catalyst, because it's more dopamine, and your system goes, what just happened? Oh, I'm praising myself because I interrupted my pattern. Let's do it again. You do that enough times, it starts to become your default. You don't have to put yourself, work on it. It becomes your default.
Yeah. And I talk a lot about like this. For example, I've been working out since I was, I don't know, 15, let's say. And my lifestyle, like it is a part of my lifestyle. It's a part of my being because I do it over and over and over. And so as you talk about is when you give somebody a way to interrupt their pattern and you send them home with this new exercise or whatnot, you just tell them to do it over and over. So it becomes a part of them. So they don't have to think too much about it. Am I correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Give them something to do and it will automatically start to change. I give them a head start, obviously, because of the work that we do together, but you can do it on your own.
Yeah. Okay. So talking about, like, let's say over the past year, so many people have experienced pretty low times. And of course you went through this in the earlier part of your life. For somebody that is in that place and they're really trying to create not just a good life, but an extraordinary life, what are some things you would tell them immediately to do?
Here have been for me, and that's what I encourage people to do, especially right now, because when COVID hit, I even put it on Instagram. I put it on Instagram. I said, a year from now, which you can't stop, it's going to be a year from now, no matter what you say. You're going to ask one of two questions. One is you're going to go, what am I glad that I did over this last year, that my life is better now, that I'm thriving now? Or you're going to ask, what do I wish I would have done? And so I encourage everybody to, it's a year now, it's going to be a year from now, if that makes sense. So yeah. Ask the same questions. Ask the question, what am I glad that what should I do right now so that a year from now, I'll look back and say, I'm glad I did that. And so I've got a philosophy, and the philosophy is learn it, talk it, walk it, teach it. Learn it, talk it, walk it, teach it. And all the way back from when I read Think and Grow Rich, I followed that formula. And what that means is take the time right now to learn something, a skill, a philosophy or something. Learn something new. That's what we're about. And I'm going to tell you, most people do just the opposite. Most people, here's what they did, is they sat their ass on the couch and watched Netflix and Hulu and all those things. Evidence of that is sales and stocks and everything through all those companies went through the roof. Yeah. So there's very little that you're going to learn doing that. However, and it is the reason why, like I told you before, I created neural encoding, was to give this just for people to learn. Learn about yourself, learn whatever you learn, The next step is you got to talk about it, not just learn it and keep it to yourself. I mean, talk about it out loud. It was one of the things I learned from Think and Grow Rich. He would have us write down affirmations and say them out loud, talk out loud. There is, at the risk of sounding too cosmic, there's magic when you speak out loud, when you tell other people about it. And now it's so easy because we got social media. You can literally go and say, good, here's what I learned today, you know, and there's going to be an ear for something, but talk about it. There's, you know, you create awesome sauce, all that stuff by talking about it. The next thing is you got to walk it. That means you got to do what you say. And by the way, when you learn it and you talk about it, you get awesome sauce inside it. It makes you want to do it. You see, there's a reason why you said you've been working out since you were little. Okay, there's a reason why you do it and other people don't. And it's mechanical. You know, the reason you even talked about it now, and I guarantee you, I don't know you, but I know that it's not something you're shy about talking about or ever have been, you know, and you walk it, you walk your talk. Your physical body shows it, your bank account shows it, all of those things. You walk your talk. And then the third thing, the last thing is teach it to somebody else. You see, there's a natural order to life. You know, and it's all around us. There's give and take. There's yin and yang. There's you know, the tides rise and they fall. Well, one has to happen for the other. And one of the ones that holds true through life is that the more we teach, the more we get. The more we give, the more we get. Absolutely. And so teaching, you know, I say this to all of my, and you're one of them, a coach, mentor, teacher, masterminds, all of those things. There's such a need for people like us now because people, like I said, they're overwhelmed with watching too much Netflix and all those things like that. And so even if you're not a teacher, teach it to somebody else, teach it to your children. You don't have to give me credit for it. Just go out there and go, here's what I learned, something called a pattern interrupt. The more you talk about it, it's what I call a neuropsycho physical geometric momentum loop. Big words, and all that means is that when you think about it, then you feel it. And then when you feel it, you do something. And the more you do, it geometrically grows and it becomes a loop. One feeds into the other, one feeds into the other. And then you'll learn more. And then you'll talk about it more. And then you'll teach it, you'll walk it more. And you go around and around, it gets bigger and bigger, and that becomes who you are. That's how we change the psychology, if you will, of the masses.
Amazing. And actually, if we could touch on this, because I know I learned from Tony Robbins and several others, they talk about it's 80% psychology and 20% mechanics, but you have a different formula. And you briefly mentioned this earlier, and I would love if you could kind of explain a little bit of why this is so valuable to create more success in our life.
Yeah, because if the 80-20 rule, which it is, by the way, it's true, but if it was as effective in changing people and helping people change and getting results as people tout it to be, then why aren't more people successful? Why aren't more people healthy, happy? And by the way, to me, that's what wealthy means, is to be healthy, happy, and financially abundant. And so why aren't more people? And the answer is because it's more to it than that. Yes, psychology is the biggest piece of it. I call it the 60-20-20 rule. Psychology is the biggest piece of it. I already told you it is 20% your belief about yourself, 20% your belief about other people, and 20% about the world around you. So that's number one. But then if you can have all of those things, but if you don't do something with it, the biggest reason people don't do something with it is because they don't have the energy to do it. Energy has to go along with that psychology, but don't get it twisted with energy as meaning get up and go and vitality and stuff like that. When I say energy, it is the very thing that we talked about before. Energy is just electricity. It's just the electrons that flow around us. The more that you are exhibiting in the moment that you have, the more you're going to do something. You see, people don't exercise because they don't feel like it. Psychology doesn't support it, and they don't feel like doing it. Because if I registered them with an EKG machine, you would see that their electricity is low. Every cell in our body has something called adenosine triphosphate. It's in adenosine triphosphate, and that is the electrical generating plant in every cell. But here's what people don't understand is our muscles are what are called piezoelectric cells. And what they are is they are batteries. A piezoelectric cell is a battery that stores and generates electricity. So movement makes those stored electricity. We store the electricity from the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, the food that we eat, and all those things. That's how we create electricity in ourselves. That's how we store it in our muscles. But when we move our bodies, whether it's your facial expression, whether it is breathing, whatever, that's when the electricity gets dispersed. So energy is 20% of it. That's 80%. The third piece, which is the intangible part, and I said this before, the difference between successful people and wealthy people is that they have something called magnetism. Magnetism is 20%. And magnetism is not the laws of attraction. Matter of fact, the laws of attraction are part of the laws of magnetism. I call it the 21 immutable laws of magnetism. Magnetism is different than attraction. Attraction implies that I'm attracting what I want to me, okay? And it's a very real thing. It's a 5,000-year-old philosophy with very, very little process to it. If you ask most people, what is the secret or what are the laws of attraction, their eyes roll in their head and they make it up and they go, well, it's, what I think is what I'll attract, and they make this stuff up. And I tell them how do they do it and they don't know. Okay? So again, that, my passion is to simplify things and bring the science to us and give people something to do. Well, here's the deal. What if you don't believe you can get what you want? What if you don't believe you deserve what you want? What if you believe that there's something wrong with you? Then you'll sabotage and you'll push it away. Yeah. And the question I ask people is this, okay? First off, what is a magnet? A magnet is just a piece of iron that has been bombarded with what? Electrons. That's it. Everything on the planet is held together with what? Electrons. And so it stands to reason that if everything on the planet is electrons, what if you were bombarded with electrons? Would you become more of a magnet? And the answer is yes, and I'll prove it to you here in a second, okay? The answer is yes. But here's the deal. What does a magnet attract best? Another magnet. Because when you ask other people what they go, well, it attracts steel. Yes, it does. But you know what it attracts best? Another magnet. As a matter of fact, they're attracting each other at the same time. If you flip that one magnet over, it'll push the other one away. So I liken that to the psychology, because most people's psychology is out of whack. And so they may want something, they may want to lose weight or make money or have a great relationship, but they're sabotaging themselves. They're pushing it away because they don't believe they can. And so magnetism is lining up those polarities in our psychology. And it, like I said, it's that loop again. When you do your psychology, you get the belief, which makes the energy, which makes magnetism, and you can magnetize what you want. And I'll give you a perfect example. Remember I said unseen forces. Yeah. Here's the example. I'm going to use people as an example, but it's synonymous with material things as well. Have you ever been sitting in your car and you feel somebody looking at you and you look over and they're looking at you? Yeah, all of us.
Yeah.
Or you're sitting in your car and you see somebody, maybe it's an attractive person, you're looking at that person and they feel you looking at them and they catch you looking at them. It happens. You literally impacted that person by your attention and intention on them. You literally caused electrons to go across the expanse of distance to impact that person, and they felt you. Because as soon as you put your attention and intention on somebody else or something else, 4 things happen. Number 1, your electrons, what's called your electromagnetic energy, and you can go on YouTube and look up Carillion photography, you'll see it. Your electrons grow. The second thing that happens is that thing or that person feels it. The third thing that happens is their electromagnetic energy grows and they're now a magnet and you become attracted to each other. That's why we look at each other. Now that's the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
But it is evidence that it's going on all around. And when you do, well, like I said, neuroencoding, and you learn the skill of changing your own psychology, changing your electricity, changing your magnetism, then life goes a whole lot better, at the very least.
Yeah. And that's interesting because I know it's been said that fear of success is actually very common compared to like fear of failure. And that's, if you have a fear of success, what are you doing? You're pushing that success away automatically. Oh, that's crazy. So I know a lot of people speak about manifestation these days, and I love how you call it actually magnetic pull. And I think that's beautiful because it's a different way to look at it. It's like you are actually able to make that happen by just being magnetic. That's beautiful.
And causing which, because here's the other side of it, causing what you want to be magnetized to you as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I know you talk about the importance of having a vision opposed to just a dream. And I guess this kind of goes into being magnetic and actually visualizing that you could achieve that. So if you were to suggest people to ask certain questions so that we could determine what is our vision that we see for ourselves, like instead of just the dream, but the vision we have for ourselves, what would be some of those questions we should ask ourselves?
Well, first off, you touched on something before I go into that, the difference between visioning and dreaming. And remember, I use the word visioning, not visualizing.
Okay.
It's different. Okay. Visioning means deliberately placing in one's mind a picture of what you want. Okay. Visualizing, conjures up, images of you sitting in the lotus position, trying to get your brain to do that. Visioning means, I don't care if you go out and get a picture and put it on your cell phone or whatever, you've got a vision of what you want. Drawing a picture of what you want, you have a vision, you can see exactly what it is. I say vision with your eyes open. Most people go, okay, well, let me visualize, and they close their eyes, and then your brain just goes crazy. And some people are more successful at it, but when you vision something, a vision is a dream that is repeated over and over again with emotional intensity. A dream is temporary and it goes away. But a vision is, it's something that you put in front of you and you look at it over and over again and you talk about it. Remember the power of talking. So I forgot your question.
That's okay. No, thank you for explaining that. That's really great. But if you were to say the questions we should ask ourselves so that we can determine what our vision is.
Here's what they are. And everybody, you might want to write this down.
Yes.
I would say what you write, you invite. All right. And here's what they are. Number one, what do I want? What do I want? In the moment, what do I want? Okay. And you can go, what do I want in those 5 areas, your physical body, your emotions, your finances, your spiritual, and your relationships. You can use those, or you can just say, what do I want in this moment? Catch yourself doing it. And then the next question is, how do I feel about what I want? Because as soon as you go, well, I got some doubt about it, or as soon as you go, I feel real good about it, then you got 2 choices. Continue doing what you're doing if you feel good and enhance that, or do something different, because it kind of goes like this. What do I want? And how do I feel about it? That how do I feel about it will tell you what stops you. You can go, I had a bad, childhood, I had all this stuff. Screw all of that stuff. It's what you're feeling in that moment right now. So if you go, I don't feel good about it, or I doubt if I can, or whatever, and you got that look on your face, that's the pattern that you got to interrupt. And it's that simple. What do I want? You can say what stops me, but I always say to people, how do I feel about it? Okay. And then you go, and then so now you know what is stopping you. And now you go, what am I good? Next question is, what should I do about it? And so, and I always say, what can I do about it? And what that means is and all the time, what you can do is interrupt the pattern. But it's deeper than that, because you go, okay, well, what is my plan for tomorrow? What I want is I want to have, a shapely body, or I want to be healthy or whatever. Okay, what would I do about it? Go to the gym, schedule it or whatever. Do something in the moment. And then the last thing is, how can I praise myselse now? And that's where the ass shaking comes in, the smile on your face, patting yourself on the back or whatever. Those 4 questions, I hope everybody wrote them down, because if you just ask yourself those questions, and by the way, any pain And pain can be physical pain or emotional pain, doubt, worry, concern, anger, whatever. That's just a signal for you to snap out of it, for you to break your pattern. That's just a signal. Don't make it any more than what it is. Don't go down the rabbit hole of any of that stuff. It is from this point forward what you're going to do right now.
I always like to say that awareness is the most important. So asking yourself these questions is the first step of awareness. Like, where am I at right now? And where do I want to go? And how do I close the gap? Okay. That is so important. So thank you for sharing that. Well, I know we could go into so much more, but I want to honor your time. So I would love to know, what do you do in your morning routine that sets you up for a phenomenal day? And of course, I know you're a busy man and it depends if you're traveling, which right now it's been limited, but what sets up your day for success? What keeps you in your awesome sauce?
Well, there's several things. I have rituals, but the one I would share with everybody that I encourage everybody to do, because most people are not effective at getting out of bed in the morning. Most people, we wake up to an alarm clock. And when we do, it's like, oh, okay, and I don't feel good and whatever. And so when you start your day off with what I'm about to tell you, you'll not only get effective at getting out of bed, which is key, but you'll set your day up. And there's a couple things. First off, get a glass of water and set it by your nightstand. This is key. Before you go to sleep, I always say preparation is key. Put a big glass of water by your nightstand. Because by the time morning comes around, it's going to be room temperature. Okay, if you've got a cold at night, it's going to be room temperature. So the first thing that I do is when I don't wake up to an alarm clock, but as soon as my eyes open up, the first thing that I do is smile. Put a big smile on your face. No matter what, just go, oh, and smile. Dopamine release. Second thing you do is sit up and drink that glass of water. Because remember, we're mechanical beings. Water conducts what? Electricity. So you give yourself electricity. You give yourself a boost of electricity. And then while you're sitting up with that smile on your face, put the water down, touch your toes. Try and touch your toes. Now, I don't care if you're the greatest yoga instructor in the world and you can bend over backwards. When you wake up in the morning, your muscles have been prone for a long time and you got to stretch. Now, every morning, as long as I've been doing this, I can't touch my toes right away. It takes me about 2 to 3 minutes before I can touch my toes. And while I'm doing that, while I'm smiling, I'm breathing. And in my brain, I'm going through what I call my gratefulness exercise. And I think all the things I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for this day. I'm grateful for my son is healthy. I'm grateful that I live where I live, all the people, anything you possibly can. Because what you're causing your brain to do is to automatically look for what's great while you're smiling, dopamine releasing, and while you got electricity. Now, here's how you're going to get good at getting out of bed. Within minutes, you gotta pee because you just gave yourself a lot of water. So guess what you have to do? You got to get out of the bed. And as soon as you do, awesome sauce gets released and you're on with your day and you've conditioned your brain. Lastly, go to the mirror, look yourself in the eyes and say the 4 magic words. Do you know what the 4 magic words are?
I love you, Erica. That's what I would say. Something like that.
That's absolutely perfect. That's it. Those are the 4 magic words. Everybody knows the 3, I love you, but they don't add their own name.
So I got it right?
You got it right.
Oh, amazing. Okay. Right. Love it.
You got it right. Say the magic words, put a smile on your face and go on about your day. Those things, drink the water, touch your smile, drink the water, touch your toes, gratefulness, go to the mirror.
That's awesome. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. And another question, since I know one of the things you are an advocate of is your health, consuming the right things, doing the right, as you were mentioning, the stretches, the breathing, the water. So and it could be a full episode about health, and I know that. But if you were to share some of the things you do to keep your health optimized, besides, of course, the biggest thing, which is the mindset, what are some things you consume besides water, of course? Well,
there's 6 things.
Okay, let me hear.
Air we breathe, water we drink, food we eat, thoughts we think, moves we make, words we speak. Those are the 6 pillars. And if you just change 1% a day on those, think of it as a circle. There's 360 degrees, takes you full circle, and then it starts a new circle. If you do 1%, there's 365 days in a year, you go past one. And so take some deep breaths with a smile on your face. Drink a glass of water every 2 hours at the very least, okay? Eat healthy food, organic food if you can, 70% vegetables, okay? Move your body. At the very least, go for a freaking walk.
Yeah.
At the very least. And then, look where you want to go, have those incantations, the things that you say yourself and about yourself. And those 6 things, if you do those things just a little bit every day, it's not radical. It doesn't have to be radical. You change everything about you. It's that neurophysical geometric momentum loop. If one thing goes into the other, and you grow and you become a different person.
I agree. I think even if you just incorporate movement or working out to some form, that makes you want to eat healthier. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of odd that some people, after they work out, they're like, okay, now I could have this burger. But I think when you start doing these healthy habits, it's naturally you're going to want to do more healthy things because it's that positive dopamine that you get from it.
Your body wants to be right. Your body wants to heal itself.
Absolutely. All right. So if you were to leave one more piece of advice that you feel everybody just needs to hear right now, what would that be?
It is that life is exactly what you dare to make it. And fortune favors the bold. Mm. And so the trick to life is to boldly step up and dare to make your life magnificent. Learn something new, talk about it, walk it, and teach it to other people. You'll not only be helping yourself, but that natural trade-off in life. You give, you'll receive. You create that loop within inside yourself. You'll be wealthy, healthier, happier, and more financially abundant.
Beautifully said. And I know one thing, which we will mention this as well. You have a new podcast. What is it called?
It's called, oddly enough, Cure for the Common Life.
I love it. And you only launched it pretty recently. So everybody, of course, please go subscribe.
Yeah, it is. It's almost 9 months old now.
So. Oh, is it? Oh my gosh, it seems, because I remember when you announced that I was out, and of course time flies. So I think that's amazing.
To do more is this. In the terms of teaching, learning something, I encourage people to look into learning more about how we function as human beings, for yourself and for other people as well. There are lots of things, through my career, I've easily spent $250,000 on educating myself. But here's the difference. And nowadays, my son calls it YouTube University. You can learn so many things on YouTube. But take some courses, learn some things, and put this time that we have into learning about yourself and about other people as well. And it can do nothing but grow yourself and grow other people as well.
I love that. And actually, one of those things that you do in the end of your podcast is you give something for people to do after it. So if you were to leave something that we should do after this podcast, what would it be? Learn something.
No. Here's what it is. Join me on Instagram. And the reason I'm saying that is this. Every day, I try my best to put something out there to do, at the very least, stimulate and make you remember something about you. Dismember means take apart. Remember means put back together. That means to make new neural associations between your unconscious mind and your conscious mind, so that you become more aware of what you want and what you can do about it, along with learning something. Got lots of resources there. You can go learn about neural encoding. I'm always giving stuff away, stuff like that. Join me at my name, Joseph McClendon, I am Joseph McClendon.
Perfect. Yes, everybody. He does provide so much value. I saw your Instagram pop up today, and again, you're always providing value. So everybody go check that out. Subscribe to his podcast, learn more about him, because this is just such a snippet of all the knowledge you share, and you love to serve, and it's very obvious, and it's really fun learning from you. So I'm so appreciative for everything you shared today and your passion to serve. It means so much. I'm so grateful to share this space with you. Thank you so much, Joseph McCleandon III. I appreciate you.
My pleasure, Erica. Have a spectacular day and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much.